Before anyone knew her name, Madame Ojugo was just another face at Ojoto Market. Her stall sold faded second-hand bras and broken zippers. She was the type people looked through, not at. Her wrapper was always stained, her hair loosely tied in a net, and her voice often lost in the noise of bargaining women and Agboros shouting across the muddy road. But one rainy Monday, everything changed. She disappeared for 3 months, and when she returned, she arrived in a sleek black G-Wagon with a private driver who opened the door for her like she was royalty. Her wrapper had been replaced by flowing silk gowns. Her hair was styled with imported bone-straight wigs. And the same women who once mocked her scent now bowed to greet her, calling her Madam Global Investment. Nobody knew what happened in those 3 months. She said she traveled to Abuja for a new business training. Some claimed she was importing gold. Others whispered about crypto deals. But whatever it was, she came back different. Powerful. Untouchable. Within weeks, Madame Ojugo bought 5 stores in the heart of Garki Plaza and became the go-to woman for loans. Big men politicians, contractors, business tycoons were quietly coming to her for financial help. But there was something odd. They never seemed to grow after receiving her money. They shrank. Their companies folded. Their marriages broke. Some even died. Yet Madame Ojugo kept rising. Every day she looked younger, richer, more radiant. The market women said, "She's just wise." But the elders in the shrine behind the community school? They had another word, alusi. One thing about Ojugoshe never begged anyone to collect her money. She didn't need to. Her phone would ring non-stop. "Madam, please, I need 10 million to finish a contract." "Madam, my goods are stuck at the port. If I can get 5 million now..." And she always said yes. No paperwork, no collateral. Just a whisper. "Return it in 6 months with 10% interest." That's all. But none of her borrowers ever returned the capital. They couldn't. Something always went wrong. Take Chief Damien, for instance, a respected importer of electronic gadgets. He borrowed 30 million from Ojugo to clear goods at a Papa Wharf. But a week after the loan, his container mysteriously caught fire. The CCTV footage showed no intruder, just sparks and then flames. He tried to pay her back with savings, but it wasn't enough. His children dropped out of school. His wife left. His 2 duplexes were repossessed by the bank. 6 months later, he died of a stroke. Ojugo sent flowers to the funeral. And the same week, she opened a new luxury fashion house in Lekki Phase 1. It bore his wife's maiden name. The rumour mill buzzed. Did he give her his wife too? But nobody dared ask questions. People smiled in public but whispered in fear. Yet men still collected from her. Why? Because her money came like a miracle and they were too desperate to resist. Still, some people started noticing. A journalist named Tiga began investigating her pattern. She had worked on ritual money exposés before, but this one felt different, colder. Every file, every victim. The trail led back to Ojugo. Tiga's editor told her to drop it. She didn't. Benson Obasi was once the king of construction in Asaba. His projects lined the skyline hotels, bridges, shopping centres, but every business hits a dry season, and his came like a flood. So he called Ojiugo. Madam, I need 20 million. I'll pay you in 2 months. She didn't blink. The next day, the money entered his account. No contracts, no questions. The deal was simple. 20% interest monthly until the capital is returned. At first, everything went well. He used the money to secure a new estate deal. But then the land documents were flagged as forged. Suddenly, his bank accounts were frozen, and contractors walked off site. He panicked. 6 months in, Benson had paid $24 million in interest alone. And the capital? Still untouched. So he did what no one dared. He called her. "Madam, please, let me just pay back the $20 million so I can stop bleeding." Silence. Then she replied, in a calm, eerie voice, "Return it then. But remember you already signed." He didn't remember signing anything, but she had already hung up. That night, he began gathering the funds. Sold his Lexus. Liquidated stock. Even borrowed from his cousin in the UK. The day before he was to pay, $3 million vanished from his account due to bank network reversal. Then it happened. His phone rang. Not her number. A hidden line. He picked. A deep, guttural voice spoke, slow and ancient. "Benson Obasi, you borrowed from Ojugo. You must return what you took. In full. You have 4 days, or your breath will be recalled." He collapsed. No one had told the shrine. Yet they knew his name. For 4 days he begged, prayed, vomited blood. On the 4th night, his neighbours found him naked in the street, mumbling names. By morning, he had gone silent forever. Tega Anyanwu was no stranger to strange stories. As a seasoned investigative journalist at Urban Lens magazine, she had exposed fake pastors, fake healers, and political scams. But when she received a tip from an anonymous caller saying, "Investigate the woman behind the deaths of 7 businessmen in Abuja," she was ready. At first, the case felt disjointed. Different men, different industries, different cities. But one name kept surfacing like oil in water, Madame Ojugo. All the victims had one thing in common. They borrowed money from her. Big money. Fast. No contracts, no lawyers. Each of them had collapsed within months, either financially, mentally, or physically. Tega opened a file. She labelled it The Alusi of Capital City. She started visiting the families. One widow cried uncontrollably, describing how her husband would scream at night, clutching his chest, yelling, "She's here again! She's sitting on me!" Another man's son swore his father saw rats chew through 7 million cash stored in their kitchen overnight. The deeper Tega dug, the more confused she became. No police report mentioned foul play. No courts filed any suit against Ojugo. She moved freely, beautifully, as though darkness protected her in daylight. One night, Tega sat alone reviewing interview footage. A video clip glitched. Ojugo's face froze, then twisted. For a split second, her pupils turned white, blank, like a statue. Tega blinked. Ruined. The face was normal again. Her hand trembled. She slammed her laptop shut. Something was wrong, very wrong, and she wasn't sure she was ready to see what hid behind Madame Ojugo's smile. Tega spread photos across her bed like puzzle pieces. There were 11 victims now, 11 men who had borrowed from the same woman and lost everything. She circled their names with a red marker. Damien Uche, dead. Benson Obasi, dead. Chuka Modi, mentally unstable. Segun Lasisi, missing. Afolabi, sleeping in a church compound. Hamza Idris, suicidal. Ekene Udo, divorced, bankrupt, and so on. Each man had a similar timeline. They received large loans without contracts and, within 3 to 6 months, their lives unraveled. But they all kept quiet. Why? Because powerful men don't like to admit weakness. Because no one wants to confess that a woman destroyed them. Because even in their final moments, they were afraid of her. Tega followed one of the victim's old drivers. He whispered, "My ogre used to dream of red rivers and a woman bathing in it. Every time he paid interest, she smiled in his dream. The day he said he'd stop paying, she poured the red water on him. The next morning he couldn't walk." Tega felt her stomach twist. She needed help. Not from police, not from lawyers, but from someone who could see beyond the physical. She picked up her phone and called her grandmother's old friend, Mama Ijeoma, a retired Dibia priestess who once helped her mother during a mysterious illness. If there was anyone who could decode this darkness, it was her. Mama Ijeoma lived in a secluded village in Enugu, surrounded by red clay, palm trees, and silence. Her compound was quiet, too quiet. A black goat stared at Tega as she approached. There were charms tied to trees and a calabash floating in a bowl of palm oil at the gate. The old woman sat under a nudala tree, chewing bitter cola. "So you've come to ask about the woman who eats people's names?" she said without Tega saying a word. Tega froze. "She doesn't need to kill you to destroy you. She just needs you to collect from her." Mama Ijeoma pulled out a wooden bowl filled with white sand. She dropped a burning stick inside. Smoke rose. Ojigo's wealth is borrowed from a spirit, a very ancient one. She went to the waters and exchanged shame for glory. But the spirit asked for a price. Not money, destiny. She turned to Tega. Every time someone collects from her, she writes their name and drops it at a sacred shrine in Ogbunik. That's where the transfer happens. They receive physical money. But spiritually, she receives their crown. That's why they can never prosper again, because their glory has changed owners. Tega's lips trembled. Can it be reversed? Mama Ijeoma looked up at the sky. Not all glory returns. Some are too buried. But one thing is sure. She leaned in close. You must not eat her offering, even if she smiles, even if she begs. Her smile is the net. Her money is the bait. And her victims are fish. Tega knew she was in over her head, but she couldn't stop. She found a local guide willing to take her to the Ogbunik shrine. The forest was dense, wet, and humming with strange energy. Every step felt heavier than the last. They arrived just before midnight. There was no gate, just a narrow opening in the earth, like a mouth yawning into blackness. The guide refused to go further. If you enter, and your heart is not clean, the ground will open for you. Tega lit her torch and stepped inside alone. The cave was damp, cold. The walls were covered in carving symbols of eyes, keys, and broken crowns. Then she saw it. A pile of names written on old parchment. Some burned, some soaked in oil, others still fresh. On one, she saw Obazi Benson, 20, 6 months, paid in full. Beside it was a torn photo of him burnt halfway through his face. Another read, Morty Chuka, 15 men, ongoing. Her hand shook as she found one with a recent date. Her eyes widened. Pastor Joseph O'Casey, Tenham, 3 weeks remaining. She heard a sound, a rustle, a whisper, then chanting. Tega ran. She didn't look back, didn't stop until she was outside the cave. She dropped to her knees, gasping, crying, vomiting. Her soul felt scratched. But now she knew the truth. Ojiugo didn't run a business. She ran a spiritual trap house. And the debt was not financial. Back in her room, Tega couldn't sleep. She kept imagining the cave, the names, the smoke, the voices. Then her phone rang. An unmarked package had been delivered to Urban Lens Officino sender. Inside was a diary. The cover read, Tuka Mordi. She opened it. Day 1. Took 15 maim from Madame Ojugo. She smiled, said I was blessed. Day 8. Started having strange dreams. My late father appeared, warning me to return what I took. Day 15. My daughter fell sick. No doctor can explain it. Day 21. My accounts have been locked. I keep paying her interest, but my capital is untouched. Day 32. I saw her in my dream, holding my wedding ring, laughing. I woke up and my wife left me. Day 40. I went to confront her. She smiled and served me tea. I drank it. Now, Day 41. I can't remember my name. Day 42. I can't remember my name. Day 43. I can't remember. The words repeated over and over. The last page was stained with what looked like blood. Tega's hands went cold. Suddenly, her phone beeped. Unknown number. Tega Anyanwu. Your own name is almost ready. In a quiet neighborhood in Port Harcourt, Emeka Ozoemena celebrated his first real business breakthrough. At just 29, the orphan-turned-entrepreneur had inherited a piece of family land in Woji and was building his first hotel. Investors were watching, banks were calling. He needed just one final injection of cash to finish the upper floor and furnish the rooms. That's when Madame Ojugo called him. He hadn't reached out, didn't even know her personally, but she said a mutual friend referred him. You're promising, she said over the phone. I like to help people like you succeed. Her voice was smooth, warm, like silk sliding over a blade. He hesitated. She offered 25 million. No collateral. No stress. Emeka accepted. But something inside him scratched. The day he received the alert, his phone froze. The bank app logged him out. He took it as a network issue. Then, at 2 a.m., he had a dream. A woman in white walked into his unfinished hotel and sat on the roof. She smiled, then plucked the roof off with her fingers like it was paper and swallowed it. He woke up gasping, sweating, and shivering. The next day, Emeka went to visit his pastor, Pastor Eze, a young but spiritually gifted man who didn't seek fame or noise, just discernment. Pastor Eze looked at Emeka for 5 seconds and said nothing. Then he quietly stood up, entered his office, and returned with an anointing oil. You took something from the wrong hands, he said. Emeka froze. You didn't borrow money. You borrowed light. And now your shadow belongs to her. Unless we act fast, she will take your breath as payment. Emeka confessed everything. Pastor Eze didn't scream. He didn't roll on the floor. He simply said, "There's still time, but you must not spend 1 naira of that money, and you must bring me a strand of her voice." Emeka blinked. "How?" "Record her saying your name clearly. Bring that sound to me." Meanwhile, Tega was preparing her next move. She hadn't eaten in 2 days. Her mind was spiraling with fear, anger, and disbelief. She wanted to publish the story, but the last time she submitted a draft, her editor mysteriously developed a heart problem overnight. The article vanished. No backups, no proof. Tega decided to visit one last victim, Uche Afolabi, a former CEO now sleeping in the back of a church compound in Lagos. She found him surrounded by flies and half-eaten bread. When she called his name, he looked up but didn't speak. Instead, he scribbled a message in the dirt. "She still speaks in my dreams. My mouth belongs to her." Tega cried. Back at home, she lit a candle and placed the diary of Chukwumadi beside her bed. She flipped to the last page and whispered, "If you can hear me, help me stop her." Then the candle went out. The room fell into shadow, and the wind began to whisper her name. That night, Tega had a dream. She was standing beside a river. A woman sat on the bank, dressed in rags, with her feet soaked in red water. Children surrounded her, wailing, faceless. Suddenly, the woman turned and it was Ojugo. Her mouth moved, but her voice was not hers. It was deep, thick, layered with thousands of tones. "I was once poor," she said. "Rats ate my clothes. My child died from hunger. My husband left me. I walked to the river with nothing but salt and shame." And the spirit asked, "What do you offer?" I said, "Take me, but give me wealth." And it said, "No, bring me the crowns of others." So I returned and began to lend. She stood and her face split. One side was young, glowing, rich. The other cracked rotten, leaking worms. Tega screamed. She woke up to find blood under her nose, and her laptop opened her unfinished article, now fully typed out by someone else. Emeka paced the length of his office, sweating. Every time he thought about calling Madame Ojugo, his chest tightened like a fist was pressing against it. But Pastor Easy's instructions echoed in his mind. "Bring me a strand of her voice, saying your name." That was the only way to disconnect her from his spiritual identity. He rehearsed it. He called. She picked. "Emeka," she said cheerfully. "I was about to call you. Hope you're enjoying the funds." His fingers trembled. He hit record on his second phone, carefully hidden. "Yes, ma," he responded, keeping his tone steady. "I just wanted to hear your voice. You always motivate me." She laughed. It was a laugh that didn't reach the soul. Sweet but sour underneath. "You'll go far, Emeka. You carry light. That's why I like you." "Thank you, Madame Ojugo," he said softly. "You really came through for me." "I always do. That's what I do. I bless people who matter." She said his name 3 more times. He ended the call, then collapsed to his knees. The phone felt like it was burning in his hand. That night, Pastor Isa lit candles all around the church altar. He placed Emeka's recording in the center on loudspeaker. He anointed the phone with oil and began to pray. The moment her voice echoed across the empty hall, the wind changed. The doors slammed shut. The candles flickered violently. He pressed in. "Every name you've swallowed, release it. Every voice you've caged, vomit it. Every glory you've chained, let it go. The air thickened. Then the voice on the phone distorted. It slowed, deepened. You dare call me out? The oil bottle shattered. The lights blew out. A thick smoke filled the room, swirling into a shape half woman, half serpent, with red eyes and golden hair. She screamed. The altar cracked. Pastor Easy stood his ground, holding his Bible high. In the name of Jesus, fire! The smoke wailed and exploded into a flash. Silence. When it cleared, the church was dark, cold, and still. But Pastor Easy was on the floor, unconscious, and a single word was carved into the pulpit. 4. Meanwhile, Madame Ojugo was sipping tea in her rose garden. Her face looked calm, but her fingers trembled slightly. For the first time in years, someone had touched the fabric of her protection. She walked into her private room, lined with velvet curtains and animal skulls. A large mirror stood in the center, showing flickering images of her borrowers. She waved her hand. Taker's face appeared. Too curious, she said. She'll be next. Then Emeka's face. The brave ones die first. But the next image froze her. It was her own face. Cracking. A voice behind her whispered, You borrowed too, Ojugo. She spun. No one was there. She touched her chest. Her heart was beating too fast. Her reflection smiled at her. But she wasn't smiling. She stepped back, and the mirror shattered. Tager arrived at Pastor Ease's church at dawn. He was recovering weak, but conscious. You saw her, didn't you? She asked. He nodded. She's not just a witch. She's a system, a principality. Then we expose her, Tager said. Not with headlines, he replied, with altars. That night, he called for a private midnight vigil-only trusted prayer warriors, Emeka and Tager. They fasted. They prayed. They anointed photos of every known victim. Then Pastor Easy knelt at the altar. Lord, if her power is borrowed, then let her lender come to collect. If she's holding crowns, let the owners rise. If her shrine speaks, let your fire speak louder. Thunder cracked outside. Ojugo, miles away, woke up in sweat. Her chest burned. Her money room smelled like rotting fish. The glass table she used to count dollars shattered without cause. She knew. Someone had opened a higher portal, and the countdown had begun. The sun hadn't risen, but Pastor Easy and his prayer team were already gathered outside Madame Ojugo's estate. Tager held a camera. Emeka held his Bible. Each of them had fasted for 3 days. None had slept. The mansion stood like a temple, quiet, pale, and heavy with spiritual residue. 2 security guards stood at the gate, visibly uneasy. As Pastor Eza stepped forward, a gust of wind rushed through the compound. Birds scattered, the trees bent. Then she appeared, Madame Ojugo, standing at the balcony, dressed in crimson, her hair down, her eyes burning gold. You dare come here? She said. This is my house. Pastor Easy spoke calmly. This is no longer your territory. This land has become too heavy with blood. Ojugo laughed. Then who will carry it? Suddenly, the ground trembled. Tager's camera shut off. Her phone exploded in her pocket. From behind Ojugo, smoke began to rise. A shadow formed behind her, massive, horned, cloaked in darkness. The deity she had served had come to collect. "You're behind on payment," it growled. She turned. "Number no, I've given you many." "You gave me names," it said, "but you promised your soul lost." She screamed, and the mansion burst into flames. The fire spread unnaturally white flames with no heat. They consumed only symbols of wealth, her money vault, her jewelry room, the portraits of victims she kept in her shrine. Tiga watched through tears as she saw spiritual crowns, some broken, some dirty, rising from the flames. They floated over the heads of those gathered. Emeka dropped to his knees, groaning. Something heavy lifted from his chest. A light touched him. He began to cry. "I can breathe again." Inside the flames, Ojugo was kneeling. "Please, please, give me time." But the deity roared. "You borrowed, now return." With a final scream, her body twisted into smoke and vanished into the mirror room now, a vortex of souls. The fire died instantly, and the mansion collapsed. All that was left was ash and silence. 3 weeks later, Tiga published her full investigation, The Evil Moneylender, How Glory Became a Currency. The story went viral. Families came forward, victims recovered, some still haunted but slowly healing. Pastor Isa started a healing foundation for spiritual victims of financial manipulation. Emeka? His hotel was rebuilt this time, debt-free. He dedicated the first floor to God, but something still bothered Tiga. One night, she opened her notebook and saw something she never wrote. The final name, Tiga Anyanu. She dropped the pen. Suddenly, she remembered something from Ojugo's first call. Back when she was still investigating, Ojugo had called her once, just once, and casually said, "Tiga, your curiosity might make you famous one day." That was all. She said her name out loud, and in Ojugo's system, that was enough. Tiga now sleeps with the lights on. Every night she hears whispers in her walls. Some nights she dreams of sitting beside a river, wearing white, offering loans to strangers. She always wakes up screaming. One evening, as she walks past a bank in town, she sees a young woman standing by a black SUV. The woman is smiling. Her eyes are gentle, her teeth too perfect. She's handing out business cards. Tiga walks closer. The woman turns, smiles. "You look like someone with potential," she says. "I run an investment firm, no collateral, no stress." Tiga backs away because she knows that voice. It isn't Ojugo's voice. It's hers.